5 feet, face it, top it, and that's it. All right, another good hedge, cocoa plum. It's used a lot nowadays. It's one of the old standbys for natives. You see a lot of contractors using this. It's a great mass planting landscape hedge. Cocoa plum produces a large fruit. It's quite edible. A lot of people eat it locally. I've heard you can make pies out of it. I've never had it in a pie, but I understand as a fruit right off the hedge, it is quite tasty. You have two different kinds. You have the red tip. As you can see on here, all the new growth produces red, new foliage, and then the green variety. And there's also a prostrate variety that stays quite low to the ground, more as a ground cover, only reaching about 2 to 3 feet high. When this hedge is in more sun, it gets a lot of new purple growth on it after it's been trimmed. This hedge here gets trimmed, maybe 4 or 5 times a year at the very most. And this shade your location maybe 3 times. But it's a good all-purpose hedge. Pretty much all these hedges here, none of them have ever been sprayed with insecticides. Nothing's ever had to be done to maintain the way they look right now other than just being trimmed periodically. It's very easy to maintain this. I think there's a amount of time spent on this yard is about 2 hours a month, and that's it. That's the grass cutting and a little bit of nip and tuck here and there on the hedges. And that's really it. It's a really self-maintaining landscape.
Were you serious when you said that yard only required 2 hours a month?
Basically, yeah. It's about 2 hours to come in and do some light trimming here and there, and it's less during the wintertime. You could even lower that maintenance considerably. There is some grass left on that site that we just saw. The homeowners want to possibly take out in the future. As you lower the grass, the maintenance will go down. If you use some ground covers and some hedges that have that slower growth, you can really keep that maintenance down. But it's 2 hours or less, basically.
Is the ideal yard one without grass?
In my opinion, yes. I'm not real big on grass. It uses so much resources from water, and then of course increases our pesticide use tremendously. I try to eliminate as much grass as I can. It's a monoculture. It's going to create problems. We see that continually. The only way to keep it as a healthy grass, as a healthy one-species growing area, we have to constantly use herbicides and things like that to keep it that way. But there are ways to get around it through education and through different methods to create a healthy-looking lawn and not have to use all those chemicals, but in most cases, if you can just eliminate the grass, that really helps a lot, especially with water use.
Plus you get the added advantage of plum pies, right?
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
I know that you brought some photographs with you today, too.
Yeah.
So let's look at those and you describe them.
Sure. This right here is wax myrtle. It's a great landscape plan. You see this all up and down I-95 as you're going north. Great great bird attractor. The fruit you see going down the stalk is very waxy, and birds just love it. Great landscape plan. We can go to the next slide. Geiger tree. This is a fantastic tree. It's originally from the Keys. It's been used up here farther north. Great hummingbird attractor. You see a lot of hummingbirds around this tree. The only problem that you might get with this is a Geiger beetle, which can be controlled quite easily. In my opinion, it's better to be used east instead of being used west. It seems to do better. Alrighty. And this is necklace pod. This is a great landscape material. Has a really long bloom spike, about 12 inches long. Blooms bright, brilliant yellow flowers. It can get quite large. I like to use it as a specimen planting on the corner of a house. Great plant native to the coastal areas of South Florida. Next. Beautyberry. This is a fantastic bird attractor. Those fruit you see right there really bring in a lot of birds. It's a very brilliant colored fruit. It's a great hedge if it's allowed to grow a little bit uncontrolled. Not a formal hedge, but just kept so it is allowed to fruit heavily. I like using it as maybe a background hedge and then putting a lower hedge in front of it for a tiering effect, but that fruit really is quite eye-appealing and it's attracted to birds. This is Dune sunflower. You see this on the beach a lot. It's a great alternative to grass in some areas. You can use it to eat up a lot of square footage in areas where you need to. It blooms this daisy-like flower pretty much all year round. It can be quite quick growing sometimes. You need to make sure when you use it properly. It's great for medium strips. You see the county's been using it in different mediums all throughout Broward County. Firebush, again, my favorite. Probably the best butterfly attractor, hummingbird attractor there is around for getting zebra longwings and getting Gulf fritillaries and also, of course, hummingbirds. It can be used as a small tree, as a hedge. It's a fantastic plant. This is the native porterweed. It's mostly used as a low ground cover. It grows more prostrate than some of our porterweeds that we see to be used today for attracting butterflies. Now, this porterweed here is best, in my opinion, for attracting skipper butterflies, other pollinators, but primarily skippers. The other porterweeds you see being used, some of the Caribbean species and Latin American species, are great also for attracting our local butterfly populations. They're just as good. They just get a little bit taller. Some get actually quite tall, as high as 12 feet. Now, this is a great insect right here. This is a lacewing, and we use lacewings for insect control, both in interior landscapes and exterior. Some local malls here, I've done some release of these guys in their larval stage to go in and control mealybugs and scales and other insects. It's a fantastic little guy. Sometimes you see him attracted to your light, your porch lights at night. Great insect. Parasitic wasp. There's a lot of different types of parasitic wasp. This one here looks like it's parasitizing an aphid. You'll also see them doing everything from caterpillars to other scales. Every once in a while you'll find a caterpillar that has like white cottony growths on its back. You do not want to touch those. Those have been parasitized by a wasp, and those are the little wasps waiting to come out of the little cocoons growing in the back of the caterpillars. You don't ever harm the caterpillar if it has those growths on it. This is also a very important insect that we have out there. Good old ladybug. Everyone knows this one. The ladybug is fantastic for controlling aphids, scale, mealybug, a lot of different things. We have a lot of species of ladybugs now that we use and release. It's for interior landscaping and other areas. It's feeding here on aphids. It's just a really good insect to use. All these insects are great. One problem we have is a lot of times whenever you have these insects in your yard, if you don't give them a chance to do what nature intended them to do, when you spray a lot of the insecticides, you're wiping out the natural controls that you would have there naturally. Keep in mind these pesticides that we use are not selective. They're going to kill both the beneficial and the bad insect. And usually you end up killing the smaller populations of the beneficials, and you never get a chance to get that natural control.
Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about plant materials, but what about chemicals? I'll address this to both of you. I know that there are soaps and oils and things of that nature. Are those really just as effective as buying something that's lethal? With the skull and crossbones on the can or box?
In my opinion, it can be in the right hands. And in my opinion, actually, it's been 7 years since I've used any chemical insecticide on a home. There are some cases where we've had to use some certain things for weed control and other things, but from an insect standpoint, I haven't used anything like that in quite a long time. You can get control. The problem that we have that I see is we tend to use the chemical control as the last or as the first resort, but it should always be the last resort. And in those cases, the first 3 or 4 options that you have complete the job for you. So you never had to go to that last option. You should look at physical control, mechanical control, and cultural control first before going into using any kind of spray.
Things like insecticidal soaps, are those damaging to plants?
They can be, depending on the plant species. Very seldom do I ever see them causing any problems. I use them now for both interior and exterior landscaping on a very large basis. And every once in a while, we might see a plant get burned because we used it on a plant that maybe couldn't take the product on the leaf, and then the sun burned it, but that's mostly on interiors. It can happen, but you just got to make sure what you're using and read the labels and be careful.
Kevin, I know your department is putting together a really nice brochure called Common Sense Pest Control. And I would imagine that your target audience is homeowners. How are you going to distribute that? How are you going to get the word out about your publication and get it into the hands of the people that need it?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we are planning a series of public workshops where anyone from the general public will be invited to come and hear, not only receive a copy of the brochure, which I happen to have a copy of here, but not only to receive a copy of the brochure, but also to come and get educated on common sense pest control techniques. We're planning on holding these through September and October, and